The night settles gently over the north, as though a great hand has drawn a heavy cloak across the sky. You are inside the longhouse, and the world outside is already hushed beneath frost and darkness. The wind brushes against the wooden walls, rattling them just enough to remind you that the night is alive, that the land is always moving. Inside, though, there is warmth. The hearth glows with a steady fire, its smoke rising upward into the hole cut in the roof. Around it, shadows sway across the beams, making the carved patterns in the wood seem to shift as though they are telling stories of their own. You pull the furs a little closer around your shoulders. The rough wool of your underdress brushes your skin, still carrying the faint scent of smoke from the day's work. The children, after fussing and whispering, have finally slipped into sleep. Their soft breathing comes from the far side of the longhouse, curled together beneath blankets. The day has been long, as it always is, gathering what little the earth still offers this late in the season. Mending clothes, stirring pots, tending to the animals. Your hands are stiff, but they find comfort now in the stillness. There is a rhythm to work and a rhythm to rest, and tonight, as every night, the silence after labor feels like a blessing. Beyond the door, the sky is ink dark, and the stars are scattered like pale seeds across the heavens. They shine brighter here than in other places, perhaps because the land is so bare, so vast, that the sky seems endless. You think sometimes that if you could reach high enough, you might touch them, or at least brush your fingertips against the cold sweep of the northern lights when they dance their green and silver shapes. But you stay inside. Night is no time for wandering. Night is for stories. There is something about the firelight, the way it softens every line of the longhouse and makes the wood glow like honey. It draws forth memory. It invites the old tales to be spoken aloud, so they may drift like smoke into the rafters and linger there for the next night. Tonight, you find yourself listening inwardly, even if no one else is speaking. You hear the echo of the sagas that have been told to you since childhood. Stories of gods and giants, of battles across the skies and deep under the earth. But most of all, stories of Odin, the All-Father, the Wanderer, the Seeker of wisdom. For in the north, wisdom is no small thing. It is not the kind of knowledge that lies quiet on parchment or waits inside a library. It is lived, it is hard-earned, and it is often costly. Every woman in the village knows this as surely as every man does. Wisdom is knowing when to plant seeds, even when the soil seems stubborn. It is knowing when to keep silent and when to speak. It is knowing the signs of weather, the warnings of sickness, the rules of hospitality, and the weight of silence when grief is too heavy for words. And in these quiet moments at the edge of sleep, you understand why Odin's hunger for wisdom is a story worth telling again and again. The fire crackles, sending sparks upward, and you close your eyes for a moment. The smell of peat and pine fills your senses. Outside, the wind lifts and falls, carrying the howl of some distant creature. It might be a wolf, or it might only be the shifting voice of the trees. You are not afraid. The longhouse walls, though simple, are strong. And here within them, surrounded by kin and warmth, the stories carry you to a place deeper than fear, deeper even than rest. Do you feel it too? The hush of the night as though the whole world is waiting? These moments at the edge of waking and dreaming are where the old tales enter. When the body is weary and the mind drifts, the gods seem closer. Perhaps Odin himself lingers just beyond the firelight, cloaked in shadow, his single eye glinting with quiet thought. He is no stranger to wanderers' roads, nor to the hearths of those who honor him with memory. You think of him sometimes as a king, sometimes as a father, but more often as a seeker. A god who traded comfort for clarity. A god who knew that wisdom does not arrive freely. It demands something in return. And as you sit by the fire tonight, your heart steadying with each soft breath, you know that in your own way you, too, have made such trades. You have given your youth to the labor of survival. You have given your strength to the care of others. You have given hours upon hours of your days to the endless cycle of tasks that keep the village alive. And in return, you have learned. The night deepens. The smoke coils upward. You lean back against the wood, listening to the small creaks of the longhouse as it settles into sleep. Somewhere, The embers shift and pop, throwing up a momentary light that makes the shadows dance like figures on a stage. In that flicker, you imagine Odin on his long journeys, walking the earth in disguise, his wide-brimmed hat pulled low, his cloak heavy with road dust. He has sat, perhaps, in houses not unlike this one, listening to the tales of ordinary folk, trading a story for a meal. And who among us would have guessed, in that moment, that the weary traveler by the fire was the very god who shaped our fate? Such is the closeness of the divine to the mortal. In the north, there is no wide distance between the world of gods and the world of people. The two interlace, like the warp and weft of your weaving. The gods are near, always, in the crackle of the fire, in the hush of the wind, in the trials of each season. And as you breathe slowly now, letting the rhythm of the night take you, you realize that this is what brings comfort. The sense that we are not alone in our seeking, that the gods, too, wander in search of answers. Your eyes grow heavier, yet the story is only beginning. For the tale of Odin's wisdom is not one of easy victories or effortless glory. It is a tale of sacrifice, of endurance, of the kind of deep yearning that leads one to give up even what seems most precious. But for now, in this quiet beginning, all you need is the warmth of the hearth, the whisper of the wind, and the slow turning of the earth outside. The gods will come in their own time. And so, as the night stretches long and calm, let these words be your company. Let them curl around you like the furs across your shoulders, like the steady pulse of the fire at your side. The stories are waiting, and you are ready to hear them. As you listen, let the warmth of the fire and the slow rhythm of these words carry you deeper into rest. If you find comfort in these journeys, I invite you to subscribe so we may share more nights together. Morning begins before the light fully returns. The world here in the north holds on to darkness longer than it releases it, and you wake to the dim glow of embers in the hearth, not the sun. The air is cold enough that your breath shows in small clouds as you rise, pulling a cloak around your shoulders. A longhouse is not draftless, no matter how carefully the walls are packed with turf, so you learn to live with the bite of air against your skin. The day begins with water, always with water. You lift the wooden bucket, its handle worn smooth from hands older than yours, and step outside into the crisp morning. The ground crunches beneath your boots if frost has come, and sometimes the sky is streaked with faint pink, though often it is simply gray. The path to the well is one you could walk in your sleep, and some mornings you nearly do, eyes heavy, body moving by memory. The rope bites your palms as you draw the bucket up, and the water rises with a hollow gurgle, dark and cold. It smells faintly of stone, of earth. You balance it carefully as you carry it back, for every drop is precious. Inside, the longhouse is stirring. A baby cries softly until hushed against its mother's breast. Someone stirs the hearth, coaxing the embers back into flame, feeding them dry twigs and then thicker wood. Smoke winds upward and lingers, brushing against your throat and eyes until you blink it away. You pour some water into a pot, setting it near the fire to heat. Porridge will come, thick with barley if you are lucky, or thin and stretched with whatever can be spared. The children grumble when it is thin, but they eat. Everyone eats. When the meal is done, work scatters like seeds thrown to the wind. Some tend to the goats and sheep, creatures whose milk and will mean survival. Their bleats echo against the wooden walls of the pen, and the smell of hay and dung is strong but familiar. You run your hands along their coarse coats, checking for burrs or wounds. In summer, their wool is shorn, spun into yarn, and woven into cloth that will keep the cold at bay. You remember your mother's hands teaching you to twist the fibers, to find the rhythm in the spindle's turn. It is slow work, but there is satisfaction in seeing thread gather where there was once only a tangle of wool. Other days bring weaving, when you sit at the loom and press each thread tight, listening to the creak of the frame. The patterns are not only for beauty, they carry meaning, too, symbols passed down that protect or remind. As you weave, you think of the runes Odin won, of how wisdom is etched into small shapes that guide the world. Your weaving feels like part of that, a woman's runes stitched into cloth. The village lives by many hands working together. Men mend tools, split wood, or set off to hunt and fish. Women tend the fires, grind the grain, cure meat, and mind the little ones who wander too close to danger. Children chase each other outside, their laughter sharp and bright against the quieter sounds of labor. An elder tells them to hush, though there is a smile beneath the words. There are moments of quiet pleasure, too. The smell of bread when there is grain enough to bake. The feel of warm milk, froth still on your lips. A song rising as you card wool, low and steady, one you do not even notice yourself humming. These are the comforts that soften hardship, the small fires that keep despair from freezing the heart. And through it all, the gods are present. You whisper their names in small acts, like charms woven into the fabric of life. A short prayer to Thor when thunder rolls, to keep the lightning from the roof. A soft word to Freya when a child is fevered. And always, somewhere in your heart, the thought of Odin, the god who sought wisdom so that humans might learn by his example. You do not picture him only as a distant ruler on a high throne. Instead, you imagine him as the wanderer, sitting unseen by the fire, watching as you turn the spindle, listening as you murmur to the children. It is said he values not only the battles of men, but the endurance of women, the strength of daily labor, the quiet wisdom found in tending life. At night, when the work is finally done, you sit again near the fire, much as you did yesterday, much as you will tomorrow. Your body aches from bending, from carrying, from standing on hard ground. But your hands know the memory of each task, and your mind rests in the rhythm of repetition. You think sometimes that this, too, is wisdom, not only what is won by sacrifice and grand quest, but what is gathered through patience, through living each day with care. The longhouse creaks as the wind presses against it, and you pull your cloak tighter. The children sleep again, and silence returns, broken only by the crackle of the fire. It is here, in these quiet pauses, that stories find their way into the air. Perhaps someone begins to speak, or perhaps you hear them in your mind, like echoes of an older time. The gods come alive in the stillness. You remember that Odin gave his eye at Mimir's well, that he hung for 9 nights on the great tree, that he sought knowledge not for himself alone, but for all. And you see how the smallest tasks, the drawing of water, the mending of a cloak, the careful tending of sheep, are threads in the same cloth of wisdom. The world is harsh, yes. Winters are long, and hunger presses close. Yet even in this, there is learning. Each hardship shapes you, teaches you what you can bear, what you can give. Each season carves its lessons into you, just as the runes are carved into wood and stone. And though no one may sing of your name in a saga, the life you lead is part of the greater story, woven into the fabric of time. Do you ever wonder how much of wisdom comes not from books or gods, but from the quiet tasks we repeat each day? I'd love to hear your reflections in the comments. When people speak of gods, they often think first of strength, of thunder, of battles that shape the world. And yes, the North remembers warriors with pride, for steel and courage hold a place of honor in the sagas. Yet Odin, the All-Father, is not remembered only for war. His greatness rests on something different, something rarer. His endless hunger for wisdom. It may seem unusual, does it not? For what ruler, what chief would choose to give up power or comfort simply to understand? Most men seek victory in battle, wealth in raids, or loyalty from kin. But Odin sought something less visible, less easily measured. He wanted knowledge that could not be weighed in gold or won with a sword. He wanted foresight, the power to see what lay ahead, and the wisdom to endure what must come. This is why Odin matters. He is not simply a figure of distant myth. He is a reflection of the needs of the people who told his stories. For in the North, wisdom was not luxury. It was survival. Imagine it for a moment. The land is harsh, the winters stretch long, and the soil is thin. A poor harvest could mean hunger, and a sudden storm could end a life. What use is brute strength if you do not know when to plant, when to seek shelter, when to hold back your anger, and when to release it? Wisdom was the quiet guide that turned struggle into endurance. It was as necessary as food or fire. You see it in daily life. A woman must know how to read the sky, to sense whether snow is coming, so she can bring the animals to shelter. She must know which herbs soothe a fever and which can ease the pain of birth. She must know when to speak words of comfort and when to let silence do the work. These are not the skills of warriors, yet they are wisdom all the same. Without them, a family falters. And so, when stories are told of Odin's sacrifices, of his quest for deeper knowledge, they feel familiar. They echo the choices of ordinary people who give up comfort for survival, who sacrifice ease for the sake of those they love. A woman rises before dawn, though her body aches, to fetch water in the freezing dark. A man gives the last portion of food to his children, though hunger gnaws at him. These, too, are trades, sacrifices made in the name of wisdom, endurance, and care. Perhaps that is why Odin is remembered as both mighty and close, both distant god and wandering traveler. He wears many faces. Ruler of Asgard, yes, but also the gray-cloaked stranger who walks among mortals, learning from their words and their work. It is said he values wisdom wherever it is found, whether in the mouth of a god, a giant, or a humble farmer's child. That thought brings comfort, that even the smallest life, the quietest voice, might hold knowledge worthy of a god's attention. The villagers know that wisdom comes at a price. Odin's stories remind them of this truth. When he sought the waters of Mimir's well, he traded his eye for a single drink, giving up half his vision to gain deeper sight. Later, when he longed for the runes, he hung 9 nights on Yggdrasil, pierced and starving, until the secrets revealed themselves. He gave of himself again and again to gain understanding. And the people, hearing these stories by firelight, nodded in recognition. For they, too, knew that to learn often means to suffer, to lose, to give something precious away. Do you see how this mirrors the life of the village? A mother loses sleep night after night, yet gains the knowledge of her child's needs. A farmer risks his strength to try a new field, and learns by failure what soil will not bear. Wisdom is never given freely. It is earned in hunger, in pain, in sacrifice. This is why Odin's wisdom is more than myth. It is a lesson written into the fabric of life. He teaches that knowledge is worth striving for, even when it costs dearly. That foresight is more valuable than riches. That endurance is more powerful than pride. These truths are not only for gods. They are for you, for anyone who must face the long winters of life and still rise each morning. And perhaps this is why his stories bring such calm at night. As you sit by the fire, listening, you know that your hardships are not wasted. They shape you as they shaped him. Every choice, every sacrifice, every small endurance adds to the wisdom that guides you forward. When the longhouse falls quiet and the fire burns low, it is easy to imagine Odin himself, sitting unseen at the edge of the light, not as a king high on a throne, but as a wanderer who understands the weight of toil, the ache of sacrifice. His single eye gleams in the shadow, and he sees you, not just your strength, but your endurance, your hard-won wisdom. He knows that in every quiet life there lies a story as meaningful as any saga. So, when we ask why Odin matters, the answer is not found in the thunder of battle or the gold of kings. It is found in the stillness of nights like this, in the labor of each day, in the wisdom gathered slowly, painfully, and with care. He matters because he mirrors us, our struggles, our sacrifices, our endless search for meaning. And now, as the fire's glow softens and your eyes grow heavier, let us take another step into his story. For the path of wisdom winds deeper still, into wells hidden at the roots of the great tree, into nights of silence and sacrifice. If you're still with me, let's walk a little deeper into the night, where the gods themselves wander in search of understanding. The story takes us now to a place few have ever seen, a place that lives half in the world and half beyond it. The roots of Yggdrasil, the great world tree. Its branches stretch over all the realms, its trunk binds them together, and its roots burrow deep into hidden places where knowledge and mystery lie waiting. It is said that one of those roots reaches all the way to the well of Mimir, a spring guarded by an ancient being of profound wisdom. Let us picture it together, slowly. Imagine walking across the silent land until the soil grows damp, until moss clings to every stone and the air hums with the weight of secrets. The light fades here, For the roots twist above, so vast they block out the sky. They are thick as mountains, their bark grooved like deep rivers, stretching down into darkness. Between them, a shimmer appears, the water of Mimir's well, smooth and silver, glowing faintly as if the stars themselves had sunk beneath its surface. The air is hushed, as though even the wind does not dare disturb the place. And there, beside the well, sits Mimir himself, ancient, wise, watchful. His name means the rememberer, for he holds knowledge older than the gods, older than men. His gaze is steady, deep, and unsettling, for it seems to look not only at you, but into you. He drinks from the water each day, and with every sip, his wisdom grows. The well is no ordinary spring. It is said that all the knowledge of the worlds, all the secrets of time, flow through it. To drink from it is to see with a clarity beyond mortal sight. It was here that Odin came seeking that clarity. He was already a god of many gifts, strong in battle, cunning in counsel, skilled in poetry and magic. Yet he was not satisfied. He wanted to see further, to understand more deeply, to prepare for what lay ahead. For Odin knew that the world was not safe, that shadows gathered and doom waited at the edge of time. He wished for knowledge that might help him lead, protect, and endure. But wisdom, as always, does not come freely. When Odin asked Mimir for a drink from the well, the guardian did not simply grant it. He demanded a price, for the waters were too precious to be shared without sacrifice. "One eye," Mimir said. "Give me one eye, and you may drink." Think for a moment about this choice. To lose an eye is to lose half of one's vision, to live forever marked, altered, vulnerable. Sight is precious. Sight is how we find our way, how we judge distance, how we see danger approaching. To give it up willingly is no small thing. Yet Odin did not hesitate. He reached up, plucked out his eye, and placed it in the well. And when the water rippled over it, he bent down and drank. In that moment, his vision changed. Though one eye was gone, another kind of sight opened. He saw beyond the surface of the world. He saw threads of fate weaving together, strands of the future glimmering faintly, warnings and truths that others could not perceive. He carried this wisdom with him from that day onward, marked forever as the god who had sacrificed for knowledge. The story lingers, doesn't it? It tells us something about the nature of wisdom, that it is not gained without loss. Odin's eye, resting still in the well, is a reminder that clarity demands something in return. And when we think of this tale not only as myth but as reflection, we begin to see the ways it speaks to ordinary life. For do we not all give up pieces of ourselves in order to learn? A woman who tends her children may give up sleep, her eyes heavy with exhaustion, so that they are fed and safe. In that loss, she gains the wisdom of patience, the deep understanding of care. A family may give up their comfort, sharing one cloak among many, so that all may survive the winter. In that hardship, they gain the wisdom of endurance, the knowledge of what truly matters. Every sacrifice carries within it a lesson, though the lesson is not always welcome at the time. You know this truth. You have felt it in your own body, in your own choices. Perhaps you lost something once. A dream, a freedom, a moment you wish to keep. But in its place, you learned something about yourself, something about the world. That is the way wisdom works. Cannot be handed to us whole. It must be carved into us, through the things we give up, through the hardships we endure. And so, as we sit with the image of Odin kneeling at the well, blood fresh from his sacrifice, water shining with starlight, we see more than just a god's story. We see a mirror of the human path. The people of the North told this tale not to imagine a world far from their own, but to put words to what they already knew. That every life demands trade, that knowledge is bought with struggle. The fire at your side flickers as you think of it. The longhouse walls hold the warmth close, though the night outside is cold. And in that warmth you recall your own trades, the hours of weaving when your back ached, the long walks to the well when your legs were tired, the food you gave up so a child could eat. Each of these was a small sacrifice, yes, but each carried with it a gift, a deeper understanding. Just as Odin's lost eye opened new sight, Your sacrifices opened new strength. The gods, in their stories, are never so far from the people as they may seem. Odin's choice at Mimir's well is grand, yes, but it echoes the daily choices of countless women and men across the centuries. To endure is to give something up. To love is to surrender something of yourself. To grow is to let go of what once seemed essential. As the tale settles in your heart, you notice how quiet the night has become. Even the wind seems to have stilled, as if listening. The firelight dances, and in its glow you almost see the reflection of the well, the silver water, the shadow of Odin himself leaning down to drink. His missing eye gleams not as a wound but as a symbol, a mark of courage, of devotion to understanding. He reminds us that wisdom is worth the cost. And you, too, carry marks of your sacrifices. They may not be visible as an empty eye socket, but they live in your hands, in the lines of your face, in the memories you carry. Each mark is a story. Each mark is wisdom. So let the image linger. The god at the well, the eye sinking into the water, the wisdom rising in its place. Let it remind you that the hardships you have borne are not meaningless. They are the well from which your own wisdom springs. What would you give to see more clearly? Not with your eyes, but with your heart. If this thought moves you, share it with someone who seeks calm tonight. There is a story older than memory, older than the carvings of stone, older even than the first whisper of poetry in the halls of men. It is the story of a god who chose not comfort, not triumph, but agony, in order to gain the gift of wisdom for all. It is the story of Odin upon the world tree. Let us move slowly into it, as if approaching a sacred place. You have already seen Yggdrasil in your mind's eye, the vast ash tree whose roots touch hidden wells, whose branches hold the heavens, whose trunk binds the 9 realms together. To stand near it is to feel the pulse of existence itself, for it is said that everything that has ever lived or ever will live depends upon this tree. Its bark hums with quiet power, its leaves shiver with the breath of creation. Now imagine Odin, the All-Father, approaching its trunk. He comes not as a warrior dressed in shining armor, nor as a king with crown and throne. He comes as a seeker, stripped of all but his will. In his hand he carries a spear, and in his heart he carries the resolve to suffer what must be suffered. For he knows that the runes, the secret signs of knowledge, of magic, of language itself, will not reveal themselves freely. They must be earned, carved out of silence and endurance. So Odin looks upon the great tree, and he makes his choice. He takes the spear, sharp and unyielding, and he drives it into his own body. The point pierces him, carrying pain like fire, and he lets the tree bear his weight. He hangs there, suspended between worlds, his life dripping into the soil below. And so the vigil begins. 9 nights he hangs there without food, without drink, without comfort. The tree creaks in the wind, its branches shifting against the stars, but Odin does not move. The spear holds him fast, the bark presses rough against his skin, the blood dries upon his body. Each breath is shallow, each heartbeat slower, yet he endures. Can you feel the stillness of that time? Imagine the slow rhythm of pain, throbbing, steady, endless. The world does not hurry, and neither does the god. Day passes into night and night back into day, but he does not come down. The sun burns him, the moon chills him, but he remains. And in that stillness, in that silence, something begins to stir. Visions rise like smoke in his mind. Shapes form, lines twist, symbols shimmer against the darkness. The runes, they are not merely letters, not merely signs. They are keys to hidden truths, to the binding and unbinding of fate, to the power of word and thought. They flicker before him, slipping through the air like whispers, waiting to be claimed. But they do not come all at once. They arrive slowly, as his strength wanes, as his spirit thins to a thread. Each night strips him further of himself, until he is bare as bone, nothing left but endurance. And in that emptiness, the runes carve themselves into his sight. He learns them not by gift, but by ordeal. Think of what that means. To hang without food, without water, without rest, is to approach the edge of death. To accept pain not for pride, not for glory, but for knowledge, is to walk a path that few would dare. Odin chose it willingly, knowing that the cost would be great. And in this choice we see, again, that wisdom is always purchased with sacrifice. Now pause a moment and consider how this myth echoes the lives of ordinary people. For though none of us hang upon Yggdrasil pierced by a spear, many of us have endured our own vigils. A woman giving birth knows hours that stretch into eternity, her body racked with pain, her spirit clinging to endurance until the new life comes. A family facing hunger knows nights where the belly aches, where strength falters, where every moment is stretched thin by the absence of nourishment. Those who grieve loss know vigils of their own, keeping watch beside a bed or a grave, hearts pierced by sorrow, waiting for dawn that comes too slowly. These are not so different from Odin's vigil. Each one demands that we hold on longer than we thought possible, that we surrender comfort for something greater, whether it is new life, survival, or love. The pain is real, the silence deep, the endurance immense. And when it is over, we are never the same. We carry the mark of what we endured, and with it, a wisdom that could not be gained any other way. Return now to the god on the tree. 9 nights have passed. His body is wasted, his vision dim, his strength nearly gone. The spear still holds him fast. His blood still stains the bark. Yet at last, the runes are his. They are etched into his very being, burning bright with meaning. With a final effort, he lifts his gaze, and he cries out, not in pain, but in revelation. He sees the runes clearly now, every line and curve alive with power. He knows them, holds them, claims them, and then, at last, he falls. He tumbles from the tree, not as a defeated man, but as a transformed one. The ground rises up to meet him, but he is no longer empty. He is filled with the runes, with the secrets they hold. He has paid the price, and in return, he carries wisdom that will shape the world. From that moment on, he becomes the keeper of runes, the master of words, the teacher of hidden knowledge. It is a story that moves slowly, deliberately, with the rhythm of breath and heartbeat, with the silence of stars and the creak of branches. It is not a tale of battle won or enemy slain. It is a tale of endurance, of the quiet strength that outlasts pain. That is why it still lingers in the mind, soothing and solemn, like the hush of night around a fire. And perhaps it speaks to you now, as you listen in the quiet. Perhaps you recall your own nights of waiting, your own trials of endurance. They were not easy, but they gave you something, a rune of your own, carved into your life. What would your runes say if they could be read? Would they speak of patience, of love, of survival? Let the thought rest gently with you. Let the story of Odin's vigil remind you that hardship is not meaningless, that silence holds its own wisdom, that endurance is itself a kind of power. If you're finding rest in this story, perhaps let your mind wander. What would your runes say if carved in the silence of your life? When Odin returned from his long vigil, he did not keep the runes hidden for himself. He shared them. That is why we still speak of them now, in the hush of night, as if their lines were carved not only into wood and stone, but into the memory of the people. For the runes were not distant treasures kept in a high hall of gods. They slipped into the hands of mortals, into the rhythm of ordinary life, quiet and powerful all at once. Imagine, then, a woman seated at her hearth, her knife in hand. The light of the fire flickers across her face as she leans over a small piece of wood. The knife moves carefully, scratching shallow lines into the grain. Each cut is deliberate, each stroke an echo of the knowledge Odin once won with pain. The sound is soft, almost soothing, the rasp of blade against wood, steady and sure. When she is finished, the rune gleams faintly, a sign of meaning hidden in its shape. She whispers over it, words half prayer, half spell, and then tucks the charm into her child's cradle. She believes it will guard against sickness, against wandering spirits, against the fears that creep in with the dark. In this way, the runes became part of everyday magic. Not the grand workings of gods and giants, but the small human hopes for safety, for love, for endurance. They were carved into doorframes to protect the home, into combs to ensure beauty and health, into tools so that work would go smoothly. Runes were even traced on skin or pressed into bread, their presence thought to bind good fortune to the body or the meal. It is easy to imagine the feel of them beneath your fingers. Sharp-edged at first, then worn smooth with time, the lines catching dust and soot, carrying the warmth of many hands. To carve a rune was not only to make a mark, it was to connect with the hidden strength of the world, to bring divine wisdom close enough to touch. We must remember that much of this knowledge rested in women's hands. They were the keepers of charms, the singers of spells, the whisperers of words before sleep. In quiet moments, as the loom creaked and the shuttle slid back and forth, women would murmur chants that wove both cloth and protection. A rune stitched into the edge of a garment was more than decoration. It was a shield of sorts, a prayer carried with every step. Think of the sound of it. The rhythm of weaving, the low hum of a song, the breath of wind pressing against the wooden walls of a longhouse. In that mingling of sound, the divine slipped gently into the ordinary. Each rune carried layers of meaning: protection, fertility, love, death, and each one reminded the people that they lived in a world where nothing was only what it seemed. A stick could be a spell, a carved bone a prayer, a mark on skin a promise. Perhaps you can picture a young woman preparing to wed. Her mother draws her aside, places a carved piece of amber in her hand, etched with a rune for harmony or for fruitfulness. The mother explains softly that this charm will help her in the new household, that the wisdom of the gods now walks with her. The daughter closes her fingers around the gift, feeling its weight, its smooth surface, its shallow cuts filled with meaning. Such a moment is not just custom. It is intimacy, hope, and the comfort of knowing that someone cared enough to weave divine protection into her future. Runes were also spoken, chanted into being. The power was not only in the carved line, but in the voice that called it forth. Imagine standing outside at dusk, the sky deepening, the air crisp. A chant rises slowly, low and steady, a sound that seems to thrum in your bones. Each word carries a rune's force, each syllable a thread pulling between the mortal and the divine. In the gathering dark, such sounds must have felt like strength itself, a way to steady the heart against fear. And always the runes held mystery. They were not simple to read. Each line might carry several meanings, hidden and layered, demanding thought. In this way, they mirrored life itself. Just as no one could see every twist of fate ahead, no one could grasp every secret of the runes. Yet even a little understanding was precious, just as even a small light can push back a room's shadows. The runes connected people to Odin's great sacrifice, though most would never hang from Yggdrasil or give an eye to Mimir's well. Instead, they carried small tokens of that wisdom, scratched into wood, whispered into the air, stitched into cloth. They reminded every man, woman, and child that wisdom could live in humble places, that magic could dwell in the corners of everyday life. Do you notice how similar this is to our own ways of seeking comfort? We may not carve runes into wood, but we keep tokens, photographs, or sayings close, believing that they carry something more than paper or ink. We wear rings or lockets, not only for their beauty, but for the memory, the promise, the unseen strength they represent. We whisper words before bed, words of comfort or prayer, hoping that they, too, shape the unseen world. In these quiet actions, we echo the hands of those who traced runes long ago. So, as you hear this, imagine the soft scratch of a knife against wood. Imagine the hush of a chant in the dim glow of firelight. Imagine the feel of cloth under your fingers, the hidden rune stitched into its edge, carrying the hopes of the one who made it. These small, ordinary magics remind us that the distance between human and divine is never so wide as it seems. Odin's gift lives not in grand gestures, but in the quiet marks left by loving hands. Stories of runes remind us that wisdom often hides in small marks and quiet actions. If you enjoy learning these old secrets, don't forget to follow along for more tales. When we think of wisdom, it is tempting to imagine it as one shining jewel, a single perfect truth that one might hold in the palm of the hand. But wisdom is rarely like that. It shifts, it changes, it wears many faces, just as Odin himself does. Odin is called the All-Father, ruler of Asgard. Yet he is also remembered as a wanderer, cloaked in gray, moving quietly through the villages of men. At times he is a seeker, yearning for knowledge so fiercely that he gives of his own flesh to gain it. At other times, he is a trickster, weaving riddles and deceptions, for wisdom is not always straightforward, not always gentle. And then again, he is the poet, the whisperer of songs, the keeper of words. One God, many faces, many ways of knowing. It is worth pausing here to consider what this tells us. Wisdom is not fixed. It does not belong to one shape, one voice, one kind of person. Just as Odin walks in many guises, so does wisdom itself walk among us, in forms that are often overlooked. Think of a mother holding her infant through the long hours of night. Her wisdom is not the wisdom of riddles or of battle. It is patience, the quiet rocking, the soft singing, the endurance of weariness for the sake of another. She may never call it wisdom, yet it is, for without it the child could not thrive. Now picture the healer, stooping to gather herbs from the forest floor. She knows which roots warm the blood, which leaves ease pain, which flowers bring sleep. This is not knowledge written in books but learned through touch, through trial, through mistakes carried in memory. Her wisdom is mercy, the gentle use of what grows beneath her hands to comfort those who suffer. Or think of the storyteller, sitting by the fire, weaving tales into the dark. He carries not weapons but words. He binds the young and the old together with memory, shaping their sense of who they are. His wisdom is endurance, for stories outlast stone, carrying the breath of one generation into the ears of the next. Do you see it now? Wisdom is not one jewel, but many. It can be patience, cunning, mercy, endurance, foresight, silence, speech. It is a cloak that shifts its color depending on who wears it, depending on what the moment demands. Odin shows us this truth by wearing many faces, and the people around us remind us of it daily, if we only look closely enough. And what of you? What wisdom has your own life carved into you? Each sacrifice you have made, each hardship you have endured, leaves its mark, as surely as Odin's spear left a mark upon him. Perhaps yours is the wisdom of waiting, the ability to hold steady when others falter. Perhaps it is the wisdom of forgiveness, learned through the pain of betrayal. Perhaps it is the wisdom of laughter, even in sorrow, a way of lightening burdens that might otherwise be too heavy to carry. The North taught its people to value many kinds of wisdom because survival demanded it. Cunning was needed to outwit an enemy. Patience was needed to endure a long winter. Mercy was needed to hold a community together. Foresight was needed to plan for the future. And endurance was needed for nearly everything. That is why Odin is so complex, why his stories present him not only as ruler but as wanderer, as poet, as trickster. He is not bound to one role, for no single role holds all wisdom. Think of the way the seasons shift. Winter teaches the wisdom of storing, of conserving, of slowing down. Spring teaches the wisdom of hope, of planting seeds without certainty. Summer teaches the wisdom of labor, of gathering what the earth offers. Autumn teaches the wisdom of letting go, of preparing for what lies ahead. None of these alone would be enough. Together, they form the cycle of life itself. So too with us, the wisdom of youth is boldness, the willingness to step forward unafraid. The wisdom of age is caution, the ability to see risks that younger eyes do not. Both are needed, both are true, both are faces of the same jewel. And there is one more face of wisdom worth remembering: humility. Odin himself, for all his power, never claimed to know all things. That is why he sought Mimir's well, why he hung upon Yggdrasil. He understood that wisdom must be pursued, and that no one, not even a god, can ever hold it completely. This, too, is a lesson for us that to admit we do not know is not weakness but strength. For it opens the door to learning, to listening, to change. As you lie here, listening to this story, perhaps you can feel the layers of your own wisdom. Some hard-earned, some tender, some quiet, some sharp. They sit within you, like runes waiting to be read. And just as Odin's wisdom grew through sacrifice, so has yours. Not freely, but at a cost. Of time, of effort, of love, of loss. And yet, because of those costs, it is all the more precious. Wisdom is not a crown set upon the head. It is not a title that others bestow. It is the slow shaping of the soul by all we have endured, all we have given, all we have hoped. It is as varied as the stars above, each one shining with a light that is both its own and part of a greater whole. And so, when you next hear the name of Odin, wanderer, trickster, seeker, ruler, perhaps you will remember that his many faces are mirrors of our own. For each of us wears more than one face in life. Each of us carries more than one kind of wisdom. Some days we are patient, some days we are cunning, some days we are merciful, some days we simply endure. All of these together form the story of who we are. As you listen, perhaps ask yourself, what wisdom has your own life carved into you? Share if you wish, for stories connect us across time. There comes a time in every story when shadows lengthen, and even the brightest fire begins to fade into embers. In Norse myth, these shadows are not hidden. They are not denied. Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods, always waits upon the horizon. It is not painted as a maybe, not disguised as a threat that can be avoided, but rather as a certainty. The gods know it, the seers sing of it, and still life goes on. It may seem a harsh truth, yet within it lies a kind of strange comfort. For when we accept that endings are woven into the fabric of existence, we can turn our attention not to avoiding them, but to living meaningfully in the space between. Wisdom, no matter how great, cannot banish sorrow, but it can help us face sorrow with open eyes and steady hands. The villagers of the north understood this deeply, for their own lives echoed this same rhythm. Every harvest was both a triumph and a reminder. Grain gathered now must last through winter's bite. Every winter was both hardship and teacher. Days of darkness teaching endurance, nights of cold teaching the value of warmth, of companionship, of shared bread and shared song. Death was no stranger to them, nor was birth, nor was rebirth in the turning of the seasons. Imagine, if you will, a single year in the life of such a village. Spring arrives hesitantly, with frost still clinging to the edges of the fields. Seeds are placed into the soil, each one a quiet act of faith. None can say for certain that the earth will answer, yet still they sow. Here lies the first lesson, to act in hope even when the outcome is hidden. Summer follows, green and golden, demanding labor from every hand. Fields are weeded, animals tended, houses repaired. The sun lingers late, and though the work is heavy, there is joy in its rhythm. This is the wisdom of effort, of giving one's strength while the days are long. Then comes autumn. The grain is cut, the apples gathered, the last of the herbs dried and stored away. There is satisfaction in the full barns and the jars lined on the shelves, but there is also awareness. Soon all of this will be tested by the hunger of winter. This is the wisdom of preparation, of seeing ahead, of acknowledging that plenty does not last forever. And then winter comes, the hardest season. Food is measured carefully, fires fed sparingly, days pass in shadow. Yet it is here, in the stillness of snow, that another kind of wisdom blooms. Resilience. The wisdom of waiting, of enduring, of finding meaning not in abundance, but in closeness, storytelling around the hearth, songs sung against the silence outside. Winter teaches that survival is itself a triumph, and that even in scarcity, love and companionship create warmth. Spring will return, of course. Not the same spring, not the same fields, not the same people. Some will be gone, others will have grown, children will walk where their elders once labored. But the cycle renews itself, and in its renewal is the quiet promise that endings are never the whole story. So too with Ragnarok. The myths tell us that fire and frost will clash, that gods and monsters alike will fall, that the world will be broken and swallowed by the sea. Yet they also tell us that out of the waters new land will rise, that green shoots will push through the soil once more, that two humans, hidden safely away, will walk out into the dawn of a new world. Death, loss, and sorrow are real, but so too is rebirth. When we listen to these stories, softened by time, we can hear their echo in our own lives. We too face endings, of seasons, of chapters, of relationships, of lives. We too carry grief, whether fresh or long settled in the heart. And yet, just as the villagers planted seed after a harsh winter, we too can plant small hopes, even when the outcome is uncertain. We too can find strength in resilience, even when tomorrow is unclear. The wisdom of Norse myth is not to deny mortality, but to meet it with courage, to weave meaning into the days that remain, to face hard truths not with despair, but with a deepened reverence for what is fleeting. When we know that nothing lasts forever, each moment becomes more precious, each kindness more valuable, each breath a quiet gift. Perhaps you can think of your own winters, the seasons of your life when the days felt long and heavy, when the warmth seemed far away. And yet you endured, perhaps not without scars, perhaps not without sorrow, but still you endured. That endurance is wisdom. That resilience is as noble as any hero's courage, as enduring as Odin's own sacrifices. It may be that you carry loss even now, a name, a face, a memory that presses softly against your heart. So you are not alone. For in this too we walk the path of those before us. They knew loss and they carried it as part of their lives. The myths did not promise them escape from grief, but they did offer something else. The reminder that even endings belong to a larger story, and that from the ashes of sorrow, new beginnings may rise. When the skalds spoke of Ragnarok, they did not do so to frighten, but to prepare, to remind their listeners that hardship is certain, that endings come, and that still life is worth living. The fire on the hearth is still worth tending. The bread is still worth baking. The stories are still worth telling. For meaning is not destroyed by endings. It is made sharper, clearer, more luminous in their light. And so we find ourselves here, in twilight thoughts, reflecting softly on truths that are hard yet gentle. That all things pass, that sorrow comes, that wisdom cannot shield us from pain, but it can teach us how to carry it with grace. That just as winter gives way to spring, so too do endings carry within them the seeds of renewal. As you lie here, listening, perhaps you can feel the rhythm of your own seasons. The sowing, the labor, the harvest, the waiting. Perhaps you can see that each has its place, each has its lesson, each has its gift. And perhaps, in this recognition, you can find a little peace. A soft acceptance that life, with all its turns, is a story both sorrowful and beautiful, fragile and strong. And if these reflections help you rest, consider sharing them with someone who also seeks peace in old stories. For just as the villagers gathered together in winter's dark to share warmth and tale, so too do we gather now, across time, bound by the quiet truth that endings, though real, are never the final word. The night has grown long, and the fire has burned low. The logs that once crackled brightly now glow with a softer light, a red-gold shimmer resting in the ash. Outside, the wind curls quietly around the wooden walls of the house, carrying with it the scent of pine and the endless hush of snow. In such a moment, when the world is still, the stories we've carried through the evening seem to linger in the air. We have walked together through many paths tonight, through the fields of daily labor, through the hush of myth, through the long vigils of Odin himself. And now, as the last embers glow, it is time to gather the threads, to see what they have woven for us. Odin, the All-Father, is remembered for his strength, his rule, his dominion over gods and men. Yet what stands out most in his stories is not his might, but his willingness to give up what was most precious to him in order to gain wisdom. An eye at Mimir's well, blood and breath upon Yggdrasil's branches, comfort, safety, even dignity, all surrendered in the search for understanding. And what did he gain? Not power in the ordinary sense, not an unbroken shield against loss. What he found was deeper. The runes, the hidden knowledge of the world, the foresight to see what lies ahead, the patience to endure what cannot be changed. These are not the triumphs of a warrior, but the quiet strengths of a seeker. It is tempting to hold these myths at a distance, to think of them as the tales of gods who lived far above the struggles of human life. But the more closely we listen, the more clearly we see that they are about us as well. For don't we, too, sacrifice for wisdom? Don't we, To learn through the things we lose, through the nights we endure, through the questions that press upon our hearts. A woman in a northern village may not hang 9 nights upon the world tree, but she has known what it is to endure sleepless nights with a hungry child. She has known the sting of loss, the quiet strength of carrying on despite it, the wisdom of making do with what is at hand. She has learned the runes not as shapes upon wood but as patterns carved into her very life. The rune of patience, the rune of resilience, the rune of love that continues even in hardship. And you, listening here tonight, have your own runes as well. Perhaps they are not carved into stone or whispered in chant, but they are no less real. They may take the shape of a scar that taught you endurance, a memory that taught you compassion, a mistake that taught you humility, a loss that taught you love. Each one, though born of pain or effort, becomes part of your wisdom, part of the story you carry forward. Odin's gift, then, is not only the runes themselves but the reminder that wisdom is costly and worth the cost. That to see clearly, one must sometimes give something up. That to grow, one must sometimes endure. The myths do not tell us that wisdom will shield us from hardship, but they do suggest that it will help us walk through hardship with steadier steps. As we reflect on this, perhaps it is worth asking, what have you already given up in the name of wisdom? What part of yourself has been shaped by the sacrifices you have made? It may not feel glorious, it may not be sung by poets, but it is yours and it is real. In this way, the myths draw us into a circle. The gods mirror the people and the people mirror the gods. Odin seeks wisdom and so do we. The villagers sow seed in hope of harvest, and so do we. They endure their winters and we endure ours. They find renewal in spring and so, in our own way, do we. There is comfort in this connection, this thread of continuity across centuries. The longhouses of the north have long since fallen, their timbers rotted, their hearths cold. Yet the stories they told still live, and in them, the wisdom they cherished still breathes. By listening, we too become part of that long tradition, another voice in the chorus of those who seek meaning in the turning of life. As you settle now into rest, you may find that these stories take root not as grand revelations, but as gentle reminders. To endure your winters with patience, to celebrate your summers with joy, to sow your seeds with hope, to accept your losses with grace, to carry your scars not as shame, but as inscriptions of hard-won wisdom, and perhaps most of all, to know that you are not alone in this journey. Just as Odin wandered the worlds in search of knowledge, just as villagers once shared stories against the dark, so too do we sit together here, across time, bound by the same human questions. How do we endure? How do we find meaning? How do we live wisely? The fire dims, the night deepens, but the story does not end. It continues in you, in the choices you make, in the wisdom you carry, in the life you shape day by day. For though the myths speak of gods, their lessons are written most clearly in the hearts of ordinary people. And perhaps that is the truest gift Odin has given. The reminder that wisdom is not distant, but here, within us, born of our own struggles and sacrifices. So let the story rest with you tonight. Let it settle softly, like snow upon the roof, like embers cooling in the hearth. May it remind you that your own journey, too, is filled with meaning. That your sacrifices, though sometimes heavy, shape you into someone wise. That even in endings there is renewal. And that in the quiet of night, you are part of a long, unbroken thread of seekers who have always looked to the stars, to the gods, and to their own hearts for wisdom. Thank you for joining me tonight. If this journey brought you calm, I invite you to subscribe and return again for more stories, more history, and more gentle nights together.